Okay, so looking at the two pieces of paper in front of you, who has an idea of what we're going to be doing today? What do you think? Emma, what do you think we're going to be doing, judging by the two pieces of paper in front of you?
Independent variables.
Okay, what other kind of variable did we talk about yesterday besides independent and dependent, Ava? Control variables. So before we start picking out all of these pieces to our experiment, who thinks they can tell me what one of them is? Let's start with independent without looking in our notebooks just yet. Who remembers what is the independent variable in an experiment? Kinley?
What can change?
They could all change. So what is being changed in the experiment? What are we changing in the experiment from one trial to the next? Dependent variable. Elise?
Dependent variable is like when only one thing can change.
Nope, that is in any experiment, only one thing can change. We can only have one independent variable. What is the dependent variable, Addie?
It relies on the independent.
Okay, it does rely on the independent. How do we pick it out? How do we pick it out in these scenarios? Braylon?
Like it's not like as mature as like independent.
No, not in these. Addie?
Like what you're measuring.
What are you measuring in the experiment? That's how we pick it out. What is being measured? What are the control variables or controlled variables in an experiment? Controlled variables. Carter?
What stays the same?
What has to stay the same? Is there only one control variable? No, there's usually several, okay? Independent, there's one. Dependent, there's one. Controlled, there's usually several. Which ones are typically not listed in the scenarios? Which ones are typically not listed in the words? Addie, do you remember? B? Which ones are usually not listed for us that we just have to think about the experiment? Ava? The controlled ones. We have to think about what would have to be the same for these to give us valid and reliable data. Okay, so in front of you, you have the paper that I have up here on the board, okay? This is where we're going to write everything. I didn't like that they only gave us 2 boxes on the worksheet. So we're going to do all of our answers on this piece of paper. Okay, I gave us a controlled box, so we have plenty of room to write. But I'm going to flip back and forth between, maybe, the worksheet and the answer sheet. Okay, so we're going to read scenario 1. Go ahead and open your notebook to page 3 and 4, to where we have our definitions there for all our variables if we need to look back at them. Now, the hardest part about these is some of the things it's going to talk about we don't have any background knowledge on. So it's hard for us to understand some of these scenarios. So scenario 1, there's a picture of a cow. It says a cow is given a growth hormone and then compared to another cow that was not given a growth hormone. Both cows were weighed at 2 years. We have to try and pick out the independent, the dependent, and the controlled variables in that scenario. So who can tell me one more time what is the dependent variable? Lexi, can you tell it to me since you have yours open right there? What is a dependent variable?
It's the variable that is being measured.
Not measured. That says manipulated, I think.
Or observed. It depends the independent variable.
Okay, so it's what is changing? What are we testing? So what do you think the independent variable is in this problem? What's changing in this problem? What are we looking for? What are we measuring? What are we testing? Hutley?
How much a cow weighs?
Are we? Is that what we're testing? Like, is that the purpose of this experiment, do you think? Augie?
It's which one will grow more?
That's what we're measuring.
About its hormones.
Yeah, what is a growth hormone? Anybody know? That just means they are giving the cow something, okay, some kind of medicine to make it do what? Grow. Okay? So that's what's changing here. That is the independent variable, is one cow is getting the growth hormone, one cow is not. So they're testing to see if the growth hormone is going to make that cow grow more than a cow that doesn't get the growth hormone. So on this one, the independent variable, that's why we're doing this. We have lots of examples. The independent variable is the growth hormone. So on problem number 1, the independent variable is the growth hormone. If you need to make a note, this is what changes. Okay, what changes, or what are they testing? One cow gets the growth hormone, one cow does not. So that's what changed in this scenario. How are we going to locate the dependent variable? How are we going to locate the dependent variable, Elise?
What stays the same?
Nope, that's not dependent. What is dependent? Kinley?
What's being measured?
Yeah, what is being measured? So if you want to make yourself a note above dependent, write being measured. In this one, we've kind of already answered that. What is being measured? Ava?
How much the cow grows?
So we need you're right, but how do we measure how much a cow grows? What unit do we use for that? Not unit. What do we call that? Are we measuring their height? What are we measuring their growth by? Aubrey? Their weight. So we want to be specific here, because if I said we're measuring how much the cow grows, could I be talking about their height?
Yeah.
Yes, but in this case, are we talking about how much they grow tall? No, we're talking about their weight. So the dependent variable is weight, because that's what we are measuring. What about some control variables? What are some things that have to be the same in order for this to be a fair test? Braylon?
The variables have to stay the same.
Yeah, so that's what a control variable is. But in the cow example, what should be the same for this to be a fair test? Lainey?
You have to put them maybe in the same room.
Okay, do we put cows in rooms?
No.
Okay, but they should be in the same, we'll say location. Okay, they should be in the same location. Because that gives them all the same, what was that word we used yesterday that we kind of talked about?
Room temperature.
Okay, but this would make them all have the same temperature. What did we kind of lump those all together as? Like the same amount of wind, the same temperature, started with a C. Conditions, okay? You get all of their conditions the same. If we get them in the same location, it does that. It gets the temperature the same for them, the wind speed the same for them, all of that. Augie, something else?
They have to be the same breed of cow?
Yeah, the same type of cow. Is that important?
Yes.
Okay, so we can write breed. That's a better word. I had type. Breed of cow. Because do some cows grow larger than other cows naturally? Yeah, and it wouldn't matter on the hormone or not. Addie?
Same, like how old?
Yeah, the age when they started. Is that important? Yes, the age. I'm going to put in beginning. Is your box about filled up? Okay. Aubrey, you got another one?
It's the same amount of food.
Oh yeah, they would have to be fed the same amount of food.
And the same type of food.
Same, yep, we'll put both of those together. Amount / type of food. And let's stop with that. Usually we can think of lots of them, but again, are any of these written usually? No. There is one of them that they wrote that we didn't include. What was the one control variable they gave us that we didn't even write down? Kinley?
When they're weighed.
Yeah, they're weighed in 2 years. So it would be the amount of time that they are given or that they are weighing them between. Okay, so independent and dependent we should be able to find in the text. Okay, we should be able to see the words in front of us. Control variables, we have to use our brain and think about what has to be the same in order for us to be able to make this a fair and reliable experiment. Okay, example 2. Gabe, will you read me the second one?
Mosquitoes repellent is sprayed on one arm and the other arm is not sprayed. The number of mosquito bites is counted after 2 hours.
Okay, another reason science is hard, the vocabulary is hard. Gabe missed an important word there. Do you know what that word means?
Repellent.
Repellent. What is a mosquito repellent, Mason? What is a mosquito repellent? Sorry, I don't have an ad-free website here. What is mosquito repellent? I know everybody in here has used mosquito repellent. You live in Southern Illinois.
It's like a spray you use.
To do what?
So mosquitoes won't get you.
Yeah, it's to repel mosquitoes, which means get them away from you. You want them to get away from you. So this says mosquito repellent is sprayed on one arm and not the other arm. The number of mosquito bites is counted after 2 hours. So let's process that. Let's think about what are we testing in this experiment? What are we testing? Emma?
Mosquito bites, like how much mosquito?
Hold on, are we testing the mosquito bites? Carter?
The mosquito repellent.
We are testing the mosquito repellent. That's what's changing. One arm is getting mosquito repellent, one arm is not. So under independent variable, use your resources. Why should we all spell mosquito correctly even though it's a hard word?
It's right on it.
It's right there next to it. So look over as you write it. I even have to look. I don't know how to spell mosquito. So we are testing the mosquito repellent. That is our independent variable. What are we measuring? Addie? Yeah, the number of mosquito bites. That is what we are measuring. Number of mosquito bites. Number of mosquito bites. Is that something I could easily collect data on? Yeah, I'd spray one arm and not one arm. I'd stand there for a while. After an hour, I'd count the mosquito bites on this arm. I'd count the mosquito bites on that arm. Could I say experiment over? No, I would probably have to do that for a while. Do you think the arm with bug spray or mosquito repellent could possibly still get bitten? Yes. Okay, now what would be some control variables here? Control variables. Fisher?
Type of bug spray.
Okay, you're only spraying it on one arm, but yes, you would have to be consistent if you do this over several days. You're right. If you do the trial more than one day, the type of spray would have to be consistent. You're right. But let's assume we just do it in one day, so we only have one spray. I'm going to go ahead and write that because you're right. Braylon?
Like the location, like where you're at.
Okay, I think we can sum this up with a different one. Lainey?
The type of mosquitoes?
Can we control that? No, we don't have any control over that.
The conditions?
So let's think about that. How many arms do we have?
2.
Let's focus on that for a sec.
Oh,
Braylon?
like the clothes, if there's like a sleeve on one and then like a short sleeve.
Okay, so the type of clothing. We'll put that. Type of clothing on both arms. We would need to have the arms exposed. I agree. Ava? The person. Can we have two different people's arms? No, the arms must come from the same person. I'm just going to write arms of same person. That's the big one. That kind of covers a lot of the other things you were saying. If I'm standing right here, am I in the same location? Yeah, my left arm and my right arm is in the same, has all of the same conditions, the same temperature, the same wind, the same environment. Why is that important? Does anybody know why that's important? Elise?
Because if you do this a lot of times and one person doesn't get, and if one person doesn't get mosquito bites that much and then the other person always gets mosquito bites.
Yeah, it's not a fair test if it's different people, because raise your hand if you know somebody that they never get bit by mosquitoes. Okay, I'm one of those people. I'm lucky. I do occasionally. Do you know why I probably don't get bitten by mosquitoes as much as some other people?
Because you don't have the same blood as everybody.
Yeah, I'm not as sweet as some people. But it does go back to blood type sometimes. Okay, different blood types, mosquitoes just like their blood better. And apparently type O positive blood does not taste good. And I'm fine with that. Augie? Okay, and yeah, we would have to control that. You're right. We'll just say times we applied spray. Okay, but let's put a big star by the one that it's the same person. That's the most important one. That you are testing two arms that belong to the same person. So if we have a one-armed helper, you might have to use their legs. Elia kind of got my jokes. Okay, Audrey, she's saying Audrey wouldn't be able to do it because part of her arm is covered in a cast. So would she be a good person to use for this test? No, because she has less surface area for those mosquitoes to bite. I agree.
You can't have a prosthetic.
Okay, read number 3. Yes, they must have two real arms, not a prosthetic arm. You are correct. Read through number 3. To practice this one, I want you guys to try number 3. Try and pick out your independent and dependent variable on the actual worksheet. And then we'll write the actual one on our answer page. So you are reading through number 3. I'm going to have you try these on your own because these are tricky. I want you to read through number 3. And I want you to try and fill in dependent and independent right here in these two boxes. I know that's not where we're writing our answers. I want you to put what you think on this page, and then we will go over it together. Okay, so it says one grape is placed in tap water and another grape is placed in salt water. The change in their mass is measured after a day. So what is being tested here? What do you think we're testing, Addie J? The type of water. If you just wrote water, try and be more specific. So let's go to our answer page. Raise your hand if you had that right. Good job. These are tricky. What number is this, 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 3, our independent variable is the type of water. That's what's changing. One of them is salt water, one of them is tap water. What is tap water? Lainey?
It's like
Not always. Fisher?
sink water.
Sink water, yeah. When you turn on a water faucet, that's tap water. Typically unfiltered. Well, it's filtered, but not as filtered as what you typically drink.
We have a filter on our sink. So
Okay, what is being measured? What is the dependent variable, Lexi?
the mass.
The mass. Good job. And if I asked you what is the mass of the grape, would you give me a number answer? Yeah, and generally that will always be true. Your dependent variable, if I ask you that as a question, your answer would be a number. Augie.
Can we put how much they weigh instead of mass? Did it have to be mass?
Did it use mass in the...
Yeah.
So use what they give you. Mass is without gravity, weight is with gravity. So there is a slight difference there. Very slight. Control variables. What would have to be the same? Remember, these are a little bit trickier because they're not listed. We have to use our brain. What would have to be the same? Aiden?
Type of water. And type of grape.
The type of grape, I agree. Type of grape. Hutley, you got something else?
Like, what you can't go to like temperature.
Okay, possibly the temperature of the water. Could that potentially be important?
Yes.
Okay. Temperature of water. Lexi?
You have to like take them out at the same time.
Okay, the amount of time that they're left in water, I agree with that one. Amount of time left in water. Because what do a lot of things do when they're left in water? Braylon, what happens to a lot of things when they're left in water?
They like get soggy.
Okay, some things get soggy.
They get like water inside.
Okay, some of them get waterlogged or they kind of absorb some of the water. What happens to some other things, Fisher?
They dissolve.
They dissolve. Okay? So yeah, the amount of time it's left in the water would also be important. Augie, you have another one?
You can't have like a really ripe grape and then one that was just.
Okay, so with type of grape, we'll kind of lump that in. You're right. Type, how ripe it is, or the purple versus green. Yes, you have another one?
Amount of like the water.
The amount of water in the cup would be important. Yes, if you have room, you can add that one in. Okay, let's look at example 4. Number 4 says, 2 different cars are traveling at 60 miles per hour. At a certain point, both cars slam on the brakes. The distance it takes for each car to stop is then measured. This one's a little bit harder. Let's start with the dependent variable. Why do you think I want to start with the dependent variable on this one? Bryson, why do you think I'm going to start with the dependent variable on number 4? Read me the last sentence.
The distance it takes for each car to stop is then measured.
Why do you think I'm starting with the dependent variable, Bryson? What is the dependent variable?
Being measured.
Yeah, what's being measured? What does it tell me is being measured?
The distance. The distance it takes for each car to stop.
Okay, so number 4 is the distance. Just to shorten it, I'm going to write distance until it stops. What do you think is being tested here? And this is probably the hardest one. If we ever have one on a quiz or a test, it won't be one like this one. Addie, what do you think they're testing? Or what is different?
The cars are different.
Okay, the cars are different. Specifically, though, what do you think we're testing here on the cars?
The brake.
Carter?
The brake.
The brakes. Okay? So we are testing, and we can just write different car brakes. And it's with an AKES, not EAK. So we're testing brakes of different cars. We're measuring the distance until it stops. What is the same? There's one in the text. What is the one control variable in the text? Addie?
That
They're both going 60 miles per hour. Going 60 mph. That's important. They're starting at the same speed. Emma?
They both have to stop at the same place, like one can't stop before the other one.
Okay, there should be a common stopping point. Their how about let's say braking point instead of stopping point, because when they can begin braking, their braking point should be the same. You're right.
The tires are the car.
Okay, now we have to get into the car. If we're only testing the brakes, the tires should be the same. Do you guys agree with that? Or else could the tires affect how fast they stop? Okay, so tires. Now let's do one more that covers lots. One more thing that covers lots of things. Hutley?
How hard you hit the brakes?
That's true. So what would we call that? The
brakes.
pressure applied.
The force behind.
Force, there we go. Force applied to the brakes. To brakes. Yeah, are you just lightly tapping them or are you pushing them all the way down? Why would that be hard to control? Aiden?
Because the drivers don't know how hard to push it. They don't know if the other person's just going to lightly tap it or they're going to go.
So what would help make that a better test? What would help make that more reliable? The force applied to the brakes. Kinley? Same person. If the same person's doing it, they have a better idea of the force that they applied. So in parentheses with that one, write same person. Now, just because I think I'm applying the same amount of force doesn't necessarily mean I am. No, so would this be a hard test? Yes. The one that I was thinking of is all of the conditions. Does it matter if the conditions are the same? Did it just rain outside? Is it humid? Is it foggy? Any moisture in the air, could that affect if this car stops or not? Yes. If you have room, add conditions. Some of you write a lot smaller than me. Okay, the conditions should be the same for this to be a fair test. Okay, I'm going to pause the video again. I want you to try the last two on your own, and then we'll go over them together. Read through the last two on your own, and in just a couple minutes, we'll try and go over them together. If you want to write down your guesses, write them on the worksheet, not the answer sheet. Okay, just in case you have them wrong, you don't have to erase.
I think there's 3 left out.
There's 3 left on that.
Oh, you have, sorry, we're just doing 1 through 6. If you look on here, there's just 1 through 6.
And then there's some on the back.
Yeah, don't mark any out. You're just looking at 5 and 6. Okay, number 5 said pill bugs are placed in a container where they have a choice of a wet or a dry environment. Researchers record how much time was spent on each side. There's our timer, but we're going to finish this up. Number 5, what was changing or what was being tested? Lexi? Okay, so let's just sum it up to the environment. And we don't have to list them all, but the environment was changing. That's what we are testing. We're testing to see if pill bugs like a wet environment or a dry environment. And I think a pill bug is like a roly-poly. I think it's what you guys would consider a roly-poly. What is being measured? Elise? Okay, the time spent. In each side. If I said how much time was the pill bug in the wet environment, would you answer me with a number? Yes? Okay, controlled. What would have to remain constant here? Emma?
The same amount of bugs. Like you can't put like a different type.
Well, I think they put, the way it looks is it's like one connected thing. So there's only one set amount of bugs. But what would be important?
It's the same type of.
Okay, the type of pill bugs. And since it's all in one experiment, that kind of controls the location, the conditions, all of that. So that's probably the most important, and probably the condition. If it's all one experiment, like it's set up, the conditions, you couldn't really separate it into two separate environments. But the amount of time, if they do more than one trial, do you think that's important? Mm-hmm. The amount of time? Okay, and again, I don't want you to spend a ton of time coming up with 100 control variables. Try and get 1 or 2. Okay, if you get 1 or 2, you're good. Okay, you don't have to list them all. Number 6. A stapler is used to staple 100 papers. It jams 5 times during the trial. A different brand of stapler performs the same test. It jams 22 times. What am I testing? This one's another hard one that you probably wouldn't see on a quiz or a test. Huntley? So that's actually what we're measuring. Okay, we are measuring the number of jams. Again, I don't love this one. Carter?
The stapler brand.
Yeah, we're testing different stapler brands. Or types of staplers. It doesn't really say brands, but it says 2 different staplers. Oh yeah, it does say brand. It does say that word. So we're testing different stapler brands. We're testing out the number of jams. What would have to be the same? And it gives us a couple in the text. So if it gives you one in the text, try and use that as one of your choices. Kinley?
Staples.
Okay, the type of staples would be important because some are cheap, some are not. What does it give us in the text though? Does it? Ava?
The same type of paper.
Does it say that? But that is important. What's the one that the text gives me? We're still going to write that one because that one is important. Augie?
How many times
It staples 100 papers. Okay, that's the one that it gives me, is they both staple 100 papers, but do you guys agree that the type of paper would have to be the same? Because if one is stapling this paper and one is stapling cardstock, would that make a difference? Yes. Okay, and again, there's lots. Do you have to come up with tons of control variables? No, come up with at least how many? 1. If you can come up with 2 pretty quickly, come up with 2. Okay, your homework. It's already on your desk. At the top, it asks for the definition of independent, dependent control. It doesn't have to be real wordy. That's just something to remind you what those are so that you can complete 7, 8, 9, and 10. What do you think you're doing, Aubrey, for 7, 8, 9, and 10? The exact same thing we just did. There are 12 pictures. Do you have to do all 12 of them? No, just 7, 8, 9, and 10. Are there questions on that? Any questions? Okay. You guys can go ahead and get started on that.
Do we have RCI?
We do.